Okay, today we're going over graphing lines that are not in slope-intercept form, right? They're not in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is when you have y equals mx plus b. And then I put some facts about multiplication and division rules, horizontal lines, vertical lines, just some things that you should always remember. But for this lesson, we need to notice that this is not in slope-intercept form. So remember, we went over this concept the other day. So you have to use your algebra skills to get y by itself. So we want to isolate the y value. So to isolate the y value, don't we have to undo a negative 3x? So don't we have to add 3x to both sides? And remember, whatever you do to one side, you got to make sure you do it to both sides. Now you can't just add 3, right? We're trying to undo the x's, so you have to add 3x. So be careful. And so doesn't that just give you no x's and leave you just 2y? And then remember, these are not like terms. This is just a plain constant. And this term has a variable. And you can only combine terms on the same side if they're like terms. And these are not like terms. So you cannot combine them, because one term has x and the other does not. So we say on the right-hand side, we have a 3x and we have a minus 2. Then we want to undo multiplying by 2 by dividing 2, and we're going to divide everybody by 2. And then 3 divided by 2 just is 3 divided by 2 with the x in the middle. And then remember, this is just like saying negative 2 divided by 2, right? So it's like a division fact. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1, so that's minus 1. So see, now we've got it in slope-intercept form. So in the near-pod, you're going to write this equation in near-pod. And then isn't the slope, what is the slope, you guys? And what's the y-intercept? Where is it going to cross the y-axis? Right? Isn't the b negative 1? So it's going to cross at negative 1. And isn't the y-intercept the slope, the m, and isn't the m the coefficient of x? So the slope is 3/2, which means we're going to rise 3 and we're going to run 2. And remember, it's a positive slope, so we have to go uphill. So remember, on the near pod, we asked you guys to put, on the y-intercept, we asked you to put a red dot at negative 1 on the y-axis. And then we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, and over 2. Up 1, 2, 3, and over 2. And then down 3, 1, 2, 3, over 2. Right? And normally we would actually connect these and make a line. But with Nearpod, we're asking you not to. Somebody might ask you to do that in the future. If we had paper pencil, we'd like you to do that. But with the fact that we're using Nearpod, we wanted you not to connect them. So if you had regular paper, I would actually connect and take a line, a ruler, and actually connect them, something straight. But since we don't have paper and we're doing this online, we want you just to write the actual point so we can see your rise and your run, right? So that's what your answer would look like. Because we want to see, did you really go up 3 and over 2? Did you go up 1, 2, 3, and over 2? Like, we're checking out your rise and your run and making sure when you draw the line super dark, we can't really see what you're doing. So that's what we're saying, right? So since we're all doing this pandemic online stuff, that's why we're changing it. Okay, let's look at number 2. Remember, we first have to get it into slope-intercept form, so we want to solve for y. That means we want to get y by itself. So we want to isolate for y and have it be all alone by itself. So we have to undo the x by subtracting x. And if you do it to one side, you have to do it to the other side. And remember, these are not like terms, because one has an x and one doesn't. So we have a negative x and a positive 12. Then we can undo multiplying by 4 by dividing by 4. You have to divide to each term. Now remember, this is actually a coefficient of 1. So this would be y equals negative, right? Because a negative divided by positive is negative 1/4, and then the x goes in the middle. And then remember, this is just a division fact, 12 divided by 4 fact, right? It's just a basic division fact, which is positive 3. So now we have it in slope-intercept form. So now we can begin to graph. So what's the slope and what's the y-intercept? Remember, the y-intercept is the b. So the b in this problem is 3. And that is where it crosses the y-axis. And we want you to put that in red. So positive 3 on the y-axis is right there, right? That's your y-axis. So there's that positive 3 on the y-axis. The slope is the coefficient, what's being multiplied to the x. So it's not 1/4 x, and it's negative 1/4, but no x. And so because it's negative, remember we have to go downhill. This one is uphill. The one we just did earlier was uphill because it was a positive slope. So you have to go uphill. This one's downhill because it's negative. And so we're going to rise 1 and run 4. So from here, we're going to rise 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Oh, I just went up 4 over 1. We're not going to go up 4 over 1. We're going to go up 1 and left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 1, 1, 2, 3. See how easy it is to mess up? And then we're going to go down 1 and then run 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 1 and run 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So it's got to go down 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's got to be a 1, 4, 1, 4, rise and run. Right? So even I started to mess up. Right? So that's what your answer should look like. So let's look at the next page. Okay, so let's look at example number 3. Remember, we're solving for y, so we want to get y by itself. This term has y this time. So we want to get y by itself, and remember, you got your left side and your right side. So we want to undo adding 2x. So to undo adding 2x, we want to subtract 2x, and whatever you do to one side, you have to do the other side. And then these are not like terms because one has a variable and the other one does not. So those are not like terms. So you cannot combine them. So what do we have on this side? A positive 2x and a negative 2x, or no x's, but I still have the 1/3 y on the left-hand side. And then I have a negative 2x and a minus 1 on the right-hand side. Then I could divide everything by 1/3. So I could divide by 1/3, divide by 1/3, divide by 1/3, but that can get kind of messy working with fractions like that. So how about instead of dividing everything by 1/3, why don't I just multiply by the reciprocal? And what's the reciprocal of 1/3? Correct, 3, right? Those are reciprocals. So if I have to multiply that by 3, I have to multiply both of these by 3. So that's what that says. That says I'm going to multiply. Remember, that means you're going to multiply both 2x minus negative 2x minus 1 both by 3. So when you multiply 3 times 1/3, doesn't that give you 1y, which is just y? And when we multiply 3 times negative 2x, we get, yes, negative 6x. And then 3 times negative 1, yes, negative 3. So now we've got y by itself. So now we have a slope of negative 6 and a y-intercept of, what do you think? Yes, negative 3. And we want you to put the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis, right, in red. So we have to have it down here at negative 3. And then remember, our slope is negative, so it has to be going downhill. And can't negative 6 also be written as negative 6 over 1, right? Isn't 7 divided by 1, 7? Isn't 8 divided by 1, 8? So can't I rewrite 6 as 6 divided by 1? So be careful, because some of you are doing 1/6. And 1/6 is not the same as 6. Those are not the same thing. So that means we have to rise 6 and run 1, and we have to make sure we're going in a downhill slant. So rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then run 1. Rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then run 1-ish. And then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1. So there's a very steep line that has a slope of up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, right? So notice it has a 6-1 slant. So your answer for Nearpod would just look like that. I'm just going to make my dots a little bit bigger. Okay, last problem. Okay, for the last problem, we want to get y by itself, and notice that y is already, that term is already all by itself. So don't I want to go ahead and undo the multiplying by -2 by dividing everybody by -2. And then remember, this is a hidden coefficient of 1. So don't we have y equals negative, right? Because a positive divided by a negative, 1/2, and the x goes in the middle. And then remember, this is a -4 divided by a -2. That's just a regular division fact. And isn't that positive too? So you got to remember, a negative divided by negative is a positive. So you got to watch those sign errors. And now we have it in slope-intercept form. So you would be typing this into Nearpod. Slope again is negative. So we do have to be going downhill again. And the y-intercept is +2. So we're going to put the y-intercept in red. And then we have to make sure that we're going downhill. So, and we're going to rise 1 and run 2. Some of you are going 2-1, right? 2-1 is not the same as 1/2. So make sure that you're rising and running correctly. So up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, right? There you go. So that's what your answer should look like on Nearpod. Okay, so graphing when they're not in slope-intercept form, we first want to use algebra to get them into slope-intercept form so that we can see and look to see what is the slope and y-intercept so that we could then graph it. That's the main idea. Ciao, ciao.